Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and happy July 4th week. It's past. We're now moving on to July 5th right now. But I am Jordan Wiegand. With me today is a man who is apparently stuck in the upside down, Logan Stump.
How's it going, man? It's pretty scary in here. Actually, what's really funny is Inter Miami and Chicago Fire are like the best team in the upside down. It's kind of wild in this part of the world or dimension or whatever it is.
Yeah, is that where having the least amount of points is better?
Yes.
Is that how it is?
Yeah, Gareth Bale is really good down here. Really likes.
He'll be very good in the. Because he's a golfer. Yeah, I was gonna say he'll be very good in the right side up too.
Right.
But yeah, so we are here talking. Last week we recorded on like a Thursday, and we had some games that night. So we'll kind of go over those, but we'll start with some news stories that we have here first. One of those is that the New England Revolution have signed Juventus forward Giacomo Veroni as a designated player. He's 23 years old. He is a striker who will be replacing Adam Buxa. So I'm not sure if they have an amount that they signed him for. The Buxa deal was $10 million. Okay, they signed Veroni for $3.8 million. So, hey, if he comes in and has the same sort of production, they could probably flip him again later and just keep on making that money while also being competitive. Any thoughts here, Logan, on the DP sign? They definitely needed somebody to replace Buxa because they've kind of been struggling.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's really important that they get somebody up top that scores. Just kind of looking at the goals scored for the Revs, I mean, it's not like they've been awful. I mean, they're up towards the top part. They're in the top 5 of the league with 29 goals that they've scored. But they are going to miss Buxa a ton because he was one of the guys that they relied heavily on to get goals. He leads the team currently with 7 goals. And Heel is in behind him with 4, and Gustavo Bo. But besides those two, they really need somebody up front. So I think that, this signing was good for the Revs just because I think they've got to get somebody in. However, Jordan, we've kind of talked about this in this league. It's really tough for guys to come in, especially number 9s, to come in and really perform well to start their career in MLS just because I don't know if it's because it's like a different pace or if they think it's easier when they're coming over. So they think that they're just going to get goals. And then the pressure kind of builds when they don't get goals. So I don't know. But I mean, I guess we'll see. But I like the signing. From what I've heard, I mean, he's a good goal scorer. How do you pronounce it? Veroni?
I took a stab at it. I have no idea if I'm right.
Giacomo. That's what we'll call him. Gia. But I don't know. I mean, he looks like he could be a good signing for them. So I guess we'll see. But again, the Revs currently where they sit, they really do need to step on the gas because they're kind of sitting in that 7th playoff spot. But there's teams in behind them that are chasing them down. And if they drop off in scoring at all, I mean, their goalkeeper's been great that they've signed to replace Matt Turner. But now it's a matter of can they keep even par with the goals they've scored. So I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes, I guess. It always takes a bit for people to adjust as well. Let me see if I can try to find any of his stats. He was at Juve, not at this time. He was actually in the Austrian Bundesliga where he scored 17 goals in 25 games. When he was at Juve, he was there 2019 to 2021, and he had scored no goals. He only played 1 game in each of those seasons, though. So it's kind of hard for him to break in at Juve. He also played at Venezia in 2018 to 2019 and scored 1 goal in 24 matches. But he was only 19 then. So, I mean, he's kind of had his best season ever. I think this is one of those things where they're taking a shot, seeing if it can translate here and help the team out. Hopefully they trust their scouting. I assume they do after they've had Buxa do so well for them too.
Because he was up there with Karim Adeyemi, who's the rising German international kid that was really good. That's now on board with Dortmund.
Great FIFA signing,
Right.
Adeyemi.
Yeah, he really is. He's one that always pops up, like, when they automatically assign you like scouts, and it always for some reason starts with the number 9. It always Adeyemi. It's like, okay, well, I guess I could get him if I can afford him, but a lot of teams
I think I signed him in the my Sunderland one in 2020.
Yeah.
After watching We Are Sunderland Till I Die, that I watched that I signed him in my Sunderland career, and he was tearing it up.
Yeah, great. I thought you were going to go We Are Sunderland and then LAFC Till I Die.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I was really throwing myself off. But yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. Okay. One thing I want to talk about as well before we get going, we have 2 more news items really. Tyler Adams is set to join the English Premier League Leeds United. So this is going to be for $24 million American dollars from Leipzig to Leeds. He's supposed to take his medical, I think today is what originally was reported. But that gets Red Bulls an additional $8 million from their sell-on clause from 2018. So good deal for Red Bull. Leeds is really helping out the pockets of the MLS clubs here, because Aronson helped get Philly some more money with his sell-on clause, and so did this one here. So that's going to be probably the norm, I think, going forward, is getting sell-on clauses on all these young players, because it's going to just reap so many more rewards for the clubs over here. That means Leeds has Jack Harrison, Aronson, Tyler Adams, and Jesse Marsh. Harrison, not an American, but played, for NYCFC for a good chunk of time and played college soccer here in America. So the Aronson thing was already a thing before Marsh was hired. They were already talking that up for a bit. But I think optically, this doesn't look good for like English fans. They're like, oh, he's bringing in another American. But we have to specify Aronson was already kind of a thing before Marsh got hired. And I think Tyler Adams can fill a role here. Everybody puts this as he's replacing Calvin Phillips, but I don't see it that way. They're signing multiple players to replace him. They're not going to rely on one guy. And I've seen a lot of people just down on Tyler Adams right now, Logan. All of U.S. Twitter is like really ripping this move. That I see saying this is going to be Jesse Marsh's downfall. Is relying too much on Tyler Adams everywhere he goes. And I just don't get that thought process, because I think, if anything, he probably learned that he can't play him every game. I assume he won't play every game. But I don't know. I think Tyler Adams can get better here. I mean, he's still young. All of these U.S. players are still so young that I'm not too concerned about this move for Tyler Adams.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I get people doubting Americans still. Like, I still get that idea over in Europe, because for so long, I will admit that America was not the bright spot of soccer, but they got so much young talent now. And the U.S. men's national team Twitter, that's all over Tyler Adams. I think they forget just how instrumental Tyler Adams is to the U.S. men's national team. Because there was a time there where he was hurt, and without he and McKennie, I mean, this team looks like a shell of itself. Tyler Adams is, I won't say he's the best U.S. men's national team player, but he sure is on top of the list. If I was going to pick 3 guys, it's Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, and Tyler Adams. Like, I'm picking those 3. Serginho Dest is up there as well. Like, these are really special players. So I don't know. I don't know if I get the whole Tyler Adams hatred. Like, I don't understand where that comes from. I've always been impressed with Tyler. Tyler's 23. He's joining Leeds at a time when Leeds really needs some young depth. I think part of their problems with Leeds was last year that they just didn't have the fire. I think if you got a guy like Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson playing alongside some of these Premier League guys that they're going to rise to the occasion. I think this helps us tremendously going forward in the World Cup because these two guys are going to be facing World Cup talent day in and day out, where I think in the Austrian leagues, I'm not really sure they're getting that. Like, I'm not sure they're getting, the kind of talent that you would normally see.
Well, Tyler was in Germany, but he wasn't playing enough at the end, because he really wasn't.
But even in Bundesliga, I mean, you're playing. I mean, that league's turned into, unless you're playing Dortmund or Bayern, you're not really playing top level talent anymore. You're playing pretty mediocre players who maybe there's some players on there that are some of the smaller nations, but you bring them to Prem. I mean, hell, Leeds is facing Chelsea one day, United the next day, City the following week. So it's like you're playing world-class talent, and it's the best league in the world. So why are you? I don't know. I just don't get why people were upset about it. And then I heard some people saying, "Why did he stoop to Leeds? Leeds is bad. They're going to get relegated." I'm like, that's not the point. Like, you sign players to get better, and I think Calvin Phillips is a really good player. But if you're signing Tyler Adams, and he kind of steps into a similar role, I mean, I know he's not the same, but and he actually does a lot of things differently that Calvin doesn't do. But I don't know. I hate U.S. men's national team Twitter sometimes just because it's so negative. Like, I just don't get. Are we ever going to be happy as a nation with a soccer club? I just don't feel like it's going to be the case.
I don't know. I do want to actually cover this too. This just happened an hour ago. I totally missed it till now. TFC are trading Pozuelo to Inter Miami. And TFC are going to be signing Federico Bernardeschi from Juventus on a free transfer.
What?
Yeah.
Really? Because they were talking about Pozuelo coming back and like this team could really take off.
Well, I guess they were not taking off, so it's time to press plan B here. I mean, he hasn't been the player he was that.
No, he's been hurt.
That first year in 2020, 2021, whenever I don't even know when it was anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see his stats. So he'd been with Toronto. Okay, 2019. All right. 12 goals, 7 assists. 9 goals, 9 assists in 2020. 1 goal, 4 assists last year. 4 goals, 4 assists this year. So pretty much sums it up, I think, for him. His XG is going down per 90. Yeah. So now, again, that could just be a Toronto issue, right? I mean, I don't know. But I think the reason they've been so bad is he hasn't been as good as he was. So, see how that goes. I guess let's look up Bernardeschi's stash.
So I got him right here, and they've written that he's really struggled. They said he was awful last year. He had 3 goals. He's a winger, so I don't really take a lot of beef with. But they said he was just not very good.
He can play midfield too, is what it says here.
I don't know. Is Toronto just in the market of just signing everybody that was once a really good player? Like, now, did you see that too, Jordan? Where they're now shopping Carlos Salcedo again?
Well, because he's been awful for them.
Yeah,
he's been really bad.
But are they just going to select all these really bad, hurt former players?
We'll see if they're bad or hurt. I mean, he may not be cutting it at Juventus anymore, but he's 27 years old, while Pozuelo's at 30 now. I don't think it's a bad swap. Especially it's a free transfer and you can trade Pozuelo. So I think that's fine. TFC have a very rich ownership group. They're looking to constantly add this type of talent to it. So I'm interested by that. And also we have Bob Bradley, who is now in charge. Pozuelo wasn't one of his guys, right? He came into him being there. So I think this makes a little bit more sense for them. Well, there you go. That's some breaking news I didn't expect to cover here. But the other thing I want to talk about is the U.S. has won their 3rd straight CONCACAF Under-20 championship title. And this time, with the change of the rules, they already qualified for the U-20 World Cup. And with the win over Honduras, they've punched their ticket to the 2024 Olympic Games. So last time when we started this podcast, right, it was the U-23s that would play for this right. They've changed, CONCACAF had changed it, or the Olympics, whoever's in charge of this, had changed it to be the U-20 competition. And wouldn't you know it, that is what saved us. I mean, all these kids are really good, but I think having that helped. Not having Jason Kreis as the leader helped. Mikey Varas has been great for this team. They were just rolling throughout this whole tournament, and I'm really excited to see in 2 years we're going to see this group of players. And I think this makes more sense because you can have them qualify for it now, and they'll be the 20-year-olds, and these will be the players that will play in that Olympics because they'll be 22, right? If they're 20 now or close to 20 now, they're going to be 21, 20. They're going to be 20 years old, 21, 22, building up to 23, which the Gold Cup the Olympics have to be under 23 except for a few players. So I think this is really great move for it. And I'm not just saying that. Yes, I am. I'm saying it just because we actually qualified this time. The first time since 2008. I like this change a lot because if this had been the same way the last 3 times, Logan, we would have qualified because we've won this tournament 3 straight times. So I say keep it as the U-20s, and let's keep on rolling and winning this thing and keep qualifying for Olympics. But this will be huge because we haven't been in Olympics for 14 years. By the time it gets to it, it's going to be 16 years that we have not been in an Olympic game. Stu Holden was still playing back then. He was in the group, a whole bunch of players that were still in that group. But what are your thoughts here on the Olympics qualification?
Again, we talked about it last time when we didn't qualify. It's always important when these younger guys can qualify for important competitions because as they get older, they're the team that steps in, and they're the guys that step in behind some of these guys that have been playing for a while to really propel this U.S. men's national team forward. So I know that with this win, and qualifying for the Olympics, these guys are going to get really good in-game experiences playing against really competitive, high-level talent. They're going to be playing these guys. I mean, the cool thing about the U-20s, U-23s is that these guys, you grow up playing this generation. Like the guys they're scoring off against are the guys they'll be playing in the World Cup when they get older. So the more that you're able to kind of like gel as a team and get this young core going, and I know you're probably happy because the Union probably had they probably had to have like their smile ear to ear constantly through this tournament just because every single one of their players seems to be guys that this team relies heavily on. So just building this core together, and then this Union team is going to have 4 of these really good soccer players on their team, including Paxton, for a little bit. It's cool. I'm glad that they're getting this experience. I'm glad that things are going well because when they don't go well, then that's when we have one of these gaps in the generation where it just isn't good soccer to watch for 4 to 8 years, and you kind of make the World Cup backwards falling into it. So it really is. It's nice to see that these younger guys are going really well, and I think we finally all got to see why they say Paxton is probably going to be better than Brendan. Like it just the kid is just extremely talented. I think 7 goals in all competition and that whole competition. So, 7 goals, and he looked so like poised. He looked so much older than the rest of them. So it'll be kind of cool watching the Aronson brothers absolutely annihilate opponents on the world stages. They do get a little bit older because they're both pretty young still. So I don't know. Are you excited? Because it seems like all your guys are coming into. I mean, they all were aces in kind of that competition.
I'm excited. It's nice to see them. Here's why I'm excited. It was nice to see them actually play. Paxton, McGlynn, they don't get enough time at the Union, right?
Do you think Paxton and Quinn are both sold? or even Jack maybe, are all sold before they really get playing
Yeah,
time? You do?
absolutely. It's going to be like a Dallas situation. And that's
Mhm.
what I wanted to avoid, because what I liked about, and even Brendan barely played here. I mean, like, he
Right.
did for that year and a half, right? And then he made his name, and then just as he was getting going, he's gone, right?
What about Mark?
But
Was he also?
but him, I got to see him more. I got to
Yeah.
see Aronson more. Paxton, Sullivan, McGlynn. I mean, McGlynn probably gets more time than the other two, but it's down to the way Curtin plays a bit.
Hmm.
And the situations I guess we find ourselves in most of the time, where they don't get as much of the play time. It's frustrating, to say the least, because I really want to see these kids play. And I do think, and people will say, well, don't you also want to win? I do think we can win with these kids playing, you know? It'll be frustrating if we never really get to see the fruition of this academy into the first team. I don't want it to be a Dallas situation where I can say, like, where I say a year from now, oh, you know Paxton played for the Union? Yeah, probably played a handful of games a year, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I want to avoid, because then we're just kind of a footnote. We yes, we developed them, right? But here, Paxton has played 9 games this year, and he started 1. Last year he played 14 and started 5. And he had 3 goals in those 14 games. It won't tell me if it was any of the games he started on here. But, you would expect more, right? You would expect more games, I think, at this point. He's 18 years old now. This is around the time Brendan was breaking through. But we seem hesitant to really play some of these kids. Quinn Sullivan, he's only 17, but he's played 2 games. No, sorry. He played, where's the games at? It doesn't show his games on here. Oh, that's shooting. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong stats. Now, this makes more sense. Sullivan played 21 games last year, but only started 538 minutes. So even then, when he's coming into these games, it's not a lot, right? 159 minutes this year, 7 games played, 1 start. And I get it. The Union are second place in the East. You can't probably do more than that. But guess what? 3 draws, 1 loss in their last 5. And at times, it seems like we have nobody that can be a difference maker on this team. That's where it is a little bit more frustrating, I would say. Jack McGlynn, 19 games last year, 7 starts. 8 games this year, no starts. 140 minutes. Minutes played per 90, 1.6. So getting in for a minute and a half, right? That is the frustrating thing, I would say, the most about this. And I don't know. I'm not very confident in the Union this year. I thought I was going to be, because we signed Ura, who comes in and hasn't been that effective. He also had some injury issues, I think. Where we're, the front 3 we had to put out this weekend, or the front 2, I guess it was, that we had to put out this weekend, was very odd. And guess what? 0-0 draw against the Crew. And the Union had 35% possession. But their lineup started with as it's loading here, Corey Burke up top with Chris Donovan up top, because we had some players not available. Ura was on the bench. Cole Turner made the bench. He barely plays. Carranza was on the bench. So that was a weird starting two, right? I don't know. It's right now going back to the kids. It's nice to say, oh, those are all Union products. But I don't know if there's so much products right now because they barely play for the Union. I'm sure these players would have been pretty good without the Union. You know, we've been hearing stuff about Brendan and Paxton, Paxton being better than Brendan for years now. Before he even really stepped on to the USL team. But again, they've been involved with the academy for so long. So it's at this point of how much can you claim you actually did and how much could you claim you didn't do? I'm sure they did stuff that helped them, but I'm sure these kids would have been pretty good without them. It's just time for them to actually start playing on the team that their club is at. Right? I don't know. I'm curious to get your thoughts on it because you were speaking pretty rosy about it and stuff, but I would guess, wouldn't you be frustrated too if you can? I know these kids probably can't do what they did at the U-20's against the MLS teams, right? But I think that they can provide more than they are providing, which is 500 minutes a season. That's it. 500 minutes a season right now for all three of those names I listed.
I mean, I would be frustrated, especially when they step onto another stage and a pretty big stage and they perform like this. And they were clearly, I mean, at least three of them were top talent, players in this region. I mean, I think McGlynn, I think Sullivan, and I think Paxton all end up being really good players. So you look at them and you wonder, and it's really strange to me because Jim Curtin, and I know they're a little younger than the two I'm about to name, but it's not like they're that much younger. Nathan Harriel, I think that's
Harriel, yeah.
Harriel, and then you got Leon Flock, who are both 21 years old, and I know the rest of them are only 3 years younger, but like 3 years in soccer is not a ton, and especially in this league when a lot of talent has stepped up in this league when they've turned 18. Like once you hit 18, that's when I feel that managers are more likely to play you. I think part of the problem is they do have midfielders and position players that are kind of in front of these guys that they can't really do much with because they are veteran leaders on this team. But even like, I mean, I was seriously shocked by the amount of games that Paxton had played because I thought he had played less. He's gotten in 9, but then again, if you look at his minutes, he's only got 190. And it seems like it's usually whenever these games are far out of reach that he comes into play. Like Union might be up 2-1 and they feel like, it's death and they feel like they can hold on and at least they get the point. Or it might be like 3-0 and Union's losing. They throw Paxton on. But I don't know, like this seems like the perfect position to be able to throw guys on and go, okay, let's see what they've got because I think, they've got a lot of talent. I think I'd like to see what kind of talent they have. But it does, Jordan, unfortunately, it kind of seems like the Union are kind of in this position where they're going to get stuck with these really talented 3 guys on their hands, and they might play half a season or a year, and then they're gone. And we never get to see them truly play well in MLS. And I know that's the league kind of MLS has become and is wanting to be right now. But it does suck that these guys are going to go on to be world talents, I think, and we're going to be sitting here going, hey, remember when they were kind of like on the Union for some reason?
Paxton will be gone by later this year or
January.
The fall.
I'm calling
the winter. And maybe some of the other ones too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and take a quick break and we'll be right back. And we are back from our break and we'll get into the MLS action now. So we had some games on Thursday. Austin beat Charlotte 1-0. Red Bulls beat Atlanta 2-1. And that was Atlanta had a lead here in that game. It was 75th minute, Joseph Martinez. And then Lewis Morgan in the 83rd minute. And then a goal in the 89th minute to seal it for the Red Bulls at home against Atlanta. Saturday, we had only 2 games, Toronto and Seattle. Seattle beat Toronto 2-0. Vancouver and LAFC. Vancouver won 1-0. Um, Sunday was where most of the action took place. NYCFC draw with Atlanta 2-2. Columbus and Philly draw 0-0. Probably all I talked about that one. We don't need to explore that. The Revs, Cincinnati 2-2. Kansas City lose to the Red Bulls 1-0 at Sporting Kansas City. Minnesota beat RSL 3-2. They come back from RSL almost came back. That's what I meant to say. RSL almost came back here as they were down 3-0, and then Savarino and Julio scored to make it 3-2, giving them like 14 minutes to try to find an equalizer. Couldn't do it. Houston loses to Charlotte 2-1. Nashville and Portland draw 2-2. San Jose and Chicago. San Jose win that one 2-1. Then on Monday, we had some more action and a lot of goals scored. DC beat Orlando 5-3 in a pretty embarrassing display for Orlando at home. Austin come from behind 2-0 to win 3-2. Logan's repping the Austin shirt right now. Dallas and Miami draw 1-1, and LA Galaxy beat Montreal, who were top of the East at one point, 4-0. We have some games coming up on Friday that we'll talk about as well. But yeah, where do we want to start here? Currently, the East has the Red Bulls up top, 32 points, 19 games played. Phillies in second with 18 games played, but 30 points. Game in hand, if they win that, they are top of the East again. Montreal in third with 29 points after 18. NYCFC in fourth place with 29 points after 17 games. They've had one win in their last 5 is against Minnesota United on May 28th. Cincinnati in 5th, Orlando dropping to 6th and now having a negative goal differential. The Revs sit 7th with 25 points, which is even with Orlando and Cincinnati, all of them with 25 points. Over in the West, LAFC are still top. They have 2 points higher than Austin right now. Same amount of games played, 36 points to Austin's 34. RSL dipped to third. They have 29 points. LA Galaxy in fourth. They have 27 points, but a game in hand. Dallas in fifth with 27 points. Nashville in sixth with 27, and Seattle in 17 in seventh place with 17 games played, 26 points. Whew. Okay. That's your playoff spots as it currently sits for the East and the West. Any surprises so far, Logan, with the weekend or how things are shaking out so far?
I mean, we'd all be crazy not to talk about Cincinnati sitting in the 5th spot now that Orlando's dropped some points, and now they're in behind based on goal differential. No, yeah. And Orlando hasn't been good. The Revs haven't been great either. So, I mean, if Cincinnati keeps playing like they have been, especially at home, starting to play a lot better at home and grabbing points where I think a lot of people thought they could really use some improvement. I think their last win at home was the first win in a really long time at home. So Cincinnati is a team I think that is going to catch a lot of eyes, especially sitting there in the 5th spot in the East. And I think, the top 4 spot isn't too far off for this club. Especially with Montreal kind of scuffling a little bit more so than they had been. They're still sitting 3rd, but have lost 2 the last 4. NYCFC, since Ronnie Dyla has left, has not been as good, and I guess we could talk about them too. But, I mean, the teams that sit in front of Cincinnati, I mean, I feel like they're very easy to get to if you are Cincinnati and if you can play well. But again, I think still people are hesitant just because they are Cincinnati and because of their history. So they're kind of like, oh, I mean, this is great. Like we're overperforming any kind of expectations. But here we sit 5th, and it's currently July. Just switched over to July, and we're pretty close to getting up on the fall. So I mean, if you get to, I mean, I'd say by September, if you're in a spot like this with Cincinnati, you can pretty much write in their first playoff appearance, which would be huge for this fan base. We talked about that with the Weigel twins from Cincy Soccer Talk. And I mean, this is it's been a lot of fun to watch, and I think they've got even more steps to take forward. So I'm excited to kind of see where they head over the next couple of weeks, just to kind of see how they get there. But a pretty interesting situation there in Cincinnati, and I think Brenner is being rumored that he's going to be sold off onto another club. So maybe they'll have some money to spend as the MLS transfer deadline or the window starts to kind of open, and maybe Cincinnati can make a move for somebody special, and maybe pluck somebody off one of these teams that might not be performing as well. So be pretty interesting to kind of watch the Cincinnati situation. But that's the one that really caught my eye, I guess. Not so much over the weekend, but over the last couple of weeks, they've just been sitting there and have kind of maintained that positioning.
Yeah, I guess the surprise would be, for me, Orlando dropping this much. I mean, DC should be a layup at home. 5-3.
Right. Especially to give up that many goals and still lose. It's like
and to give up 2 in the first 8 minutes.
Right.
Taxi Fountas had 2 goals in the first 8 minutes of the game. I literally turned it on 8 minutes late, and I was like, holy crap, it's 2-0 already. Mm-hmm. Then Fountas gets his hat trick in the 51st minute. Camarnie Smith gets the first MLS goal in the 74th. Nigel Robertha in the 90+6 to seal it. But Orlando made it a little closer than it appeared, right? Facundo Torres in the 57th, Erkan Kara in the 66th, Pato in the 80th. That at one point it was 4-3 before they were able to seal the deal. It's just, it shouldn't have gotten to that point at all. I don't know. I don't know what to do about that if you're a Orlando fan. 2.5 XG to 1.9 for DC, and they still put 5 in. That seems crazy. DC, who, if we're talking about it, again, are sitting in 13th place in the East, and their last win before this. Do you know when the last win they had before this was, Logan?
I want to guess it was in April.
May 7th.
Wow.
May 7th against the Dynamo.
Yeah.
Their last away win? Week 2, March 5th, against FC Cincinnati. Not good. If you're Orlando.
It is with Orlando, though. Like, it's defense.
They suck at home against bad teams.
Right. And good teams. They just suck at home. They shouldn't play here anymore. Relocate. I don't know. Split the games. Go to Canada. I don't know.
And they have the Union coming up here on the 8th.
Well, that'd be good. That'd be fun.
That's DC, sorry. Orlando has... Well, now I'm worried as a Philly fan having to go up against DC. Who does Orlando have next? Orlando has...
Inter Miami.
At home. At Exploria, too. You're going to lose. You're going to lose so bad.
Yeah. Luckily, though, if you look ahead to our schedule, after that game, 3 of the 4 games that we play are actually away. And, of course, we play the Union at home coming up soon. So,
can Pozuelo play for Miami this week? If so, you're going to have some problems.
I think so, yeah. I think that, it's fitting.
Geez, that is terrible. I would say another surprise, Union. I don't know if this really surprised. Union being held to a draw with the Crew. The Crew have kind of been on a good streak. They have not lost in their last 5, but they still sit 10th place. Now, of course, that's only 3 points out of a playoff spot, and they have a game in hand of the Revs and Orlando. I mean, literally, you could drop out of a playoff spot, and the Crew could take it. Miami can take it. They're 3 points back of Orlando with a game in hand. That's scary.
They've been playing well, at least better than they usually do.
Yeah. I don't know. The East is a mess right now.
There's just not really like a really good team in the East. There's just I would argue that Montreal's been the most consistent over the board because Red Bull have really tanked. even though they're sitting first,
Well,
they've really
it
not
depends what
played
you
well.
mean by consistent, because the Union have only lost 2 games.
Yeah.
They just draw a lot. So I guess you could say that's consistent.
I guess with Montreal, I think it's you either win or lose with Montreal. There's no draw. I mean, they've drawn twice. So I guess they're a roller coaster, but they seem to be in the playoff hunt more so than the other. Like the other teams kind of just have this like tank mentality almost, where it's like, okay, Red Bull when they're bad are bad. I don't know. I'm just kind of talking at this point, but
well, no,
Montreal,
I mean you're right. The teams that are on the edge are Cincy, Orlando, and New England. Here's Cincy, 7-4-7, 7 wins, 4 draws, 7 losses. Orlando 7-4-7. New England 6 wins, 7 draws, 5 losses. Like they're all kind of in that same range.
Mm-hmm.
Now NYCFC have only 4 losses, but they have a lot more draws. They have 5 draws, 8 wins. But again, they have a game in hand. They can theoretically jump up to where the Red Bulls are. And Red Bulls have 2 games more than NYCFC. But NYCFC's last 5 is a draw, a loss, 2 draws, and they had 1 win back on May 28th. So they're having some problems there, NYCFC. And who knows? Castellanos could be gone soon.
I'm still shocked he's with him. Like I'm there must be something like they must either be asking for a ton for him, thinking they'll get a ton for him, or he just isn't appealing to something, which I find shocking. I mean, this guy seems like all he does is score.
Yeah, 10 goals, which is the most in the East. Though Taxi Fountas already at 9.
Yeah. I mean,
thank you, Orlando, for DC fans. Moving from 6 to 9 pretty quickly there.
Great name, though.
Yep. I know. They always do the taxi emoji whenever they post their videos. I do want to say, I don't know what was going on with the DC feed of this. It was awful. I don't mean that disrespect to like Dave Johnson or anything. I love Dave Johnson. But what I mean is they had no sound from the stadium at all. You couldn't hear fans. You couldn't hear shots, like the ball. You couldn't hear players. And I was trying to think to myself, okay, well, I couldn't hear fans or anything. Like, is that a problem? Because we went through all of 2020 like without a lot of fans. But I think what really killed it is I had no atmosphere sound. There was no players yelling. There was no ref whistles. There was no ball. Like it was echoey on the announcers, probably because they don't have that other thing filtering it out. But I'm not sure what happened there.
It had to be the field mic.
Did Orlando have the same issue on their side?
So I wasn't even watching Orlando's feed because I was interested to see the DC feed. But like everything I had seen, no, like they didn't have that issue on their broadcast because I didn't see anybody
on really weird.
Orlando. So somebody did say that there could be a chance maybe that their audio just wasn't working with technical difficulties.
That's what I'm thinking.
Their side, like DC side, because they said because usually teams will share, like sometimes the teams will share the field mic sound because there's no purpose in putting 2 field mics on. So like you're sharing the same audio sometimes. You know,
I'm assuming they were calling it off a monitor.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe. And what's really strange is it was never fixed because usually Twitter goes abuzz and they're like, "What the hell's wrong with this?" But
I know I got 4 likes on my tweet about it. I was like, nobody else is having this problem right now. But a lot of people were watching the U.S. women's. They were watching, other stuff.
Fireworks. Yeah.
I was like, geez, this game, it was really tough to watch. I did switch over to the U.S. women's because I was like, I cannot stand watching silent. You can hear the announcers, but I mean, like, it just sounded really weird. I had to turn it off. After the halftime, I was like, I'm kind of done with this one. Plus, it was already 2-0. I was like, Orlando's done already.
Yeah. And I could say this, I guess. I don't really care much for the Orlando broadcast crew. So that's typically.
You can say it now. Yeah, they're getting rid of them.
Yeah. So that's true. I don't typically care for.
We're going to Apple.
Okay. So Taylor Twellman and them talked about this too. And they were talking about the fact that, like, that a lot of teams do sound very amateur in the production quality of their broadcast. I think Orlando City is one of those clubs. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Like, I like the guy. Like, he's a very nice guy. I think it's Evan Weston. They do a good job, but like they're very much studio guys. They are not play by play. It's just I don't know something about them that I just as a fan I don't really care to listen to it. So typically I'll turn on, which just sounds crazy, but I'll turn on the opposing team broadcast if I can. So sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody in Orlando City's club, but it's not my cup of tea.
That's all right. Like I said, they're probably Apple will
Hiring us.
sort that issue out, I
Yeah.
guess. Looking at the West, let's look at the West while we're sitting here. LAFC, like I said, are top. I guess my surprise is that Austin is caught up so quickly. But really, they've had 2 straight wins compared to LA just lost against Vancouver on the 2nd. So that narrows down. That narrows that down.
Okay, I can ask you this. Like, we both agree, right, that what Austin has done and their ownership group has done and Josh Wolf has done is probably the most impressive thing a team has done in their second year as well, I guess LAFC, but like LAFC and Atlanta, I don't really like they're
Atlanta.
So big.
Atlanta won it in their second year.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Austin, like from where they started, because I don't know I don't even know where Atlanta began their first year, how that went. But I feel like with Austin, I mean, Austin was almost a wooden spoon had Cincinnati not been so poor. Right? So it was like, I mean,
close, yeah.
They've been really good. I mean, they're tracking down one of the better teams that we've seen in a long time in MLS with LAFC. I mean, this team is a really good team, and they're going to get even better. And the fact that Austin's staying with them, it is even more impressive. But I don't know. Like, would you consider this? I guess if they win, okay, say they win MLS Cup, Jordan, are you more impressed with them doing it or Atlanta doing it their second year? Because I feel like Austin doesn't spend quite as much as Atlanta could.
I guess I would be more shocked at Austin because it would have really came out of nowhere,
right?
And would have, a first-time coach, Josh Wolf, leading the team. Which, by the way, where are all the Wolf out people at? Where'd they go?
Right, the upside down.
Because I told people. Now, of course, they gained some new fans last year that have never watched MLS, but I told people expansion teams are tough. They're going to be okay. Like, you're going to have to give them this season, right? The first season. He's not going to be fired at his first season. And now we're seeing why, right? Why he was highly touted and all that kind of stuff. So far, they're doing good. Now, of course, a lot of that changes from bringing in Jerussi, right? Who has helped the team a lot, but I mean that's just what it is, right?
Maxi Arudi has been great, but I just feel like their front office has done everything right. Like they built a huge fan base now. I mean, they had one.
So I might have to change my answer then. I might have to change my answer to I'd be more impressed with Atlanta because their front office doesn't know what the hell they're doing anymore. So I guess I'm shocked they even 1-1, But that's a joke. No, I would still be very shocked that Austin have won if they win.
And can we just say too, like, I don't know if you've ever noticed this. I was looking at the attendance record for everybody in the league, and the West like trounces the East in attendance records. Like LAFC has 22,000, and 1, 2, 3. There's only 3 teams that have a better attendance record than them in the East, and one of them is an expansion club. But if you talk about 20,000, there's tons of teams in the West that are over 20,000 in attendance. LAFC, Austin, Real Salt Lake, Galaxy, Nashville, Seattle, Portland. Like, people show out in the West. Like, this is a Western league. And the talent's better. Way better. It's weird.
I think the owners are more serious. I think we get a lot more NFL owners in the East, and I think that's the issue.
The problem.
A lot of the original 10 teams. 2017, Atlanta finished 4th in the East.
Okay, so yeah, this is a complete 180. Like that Austin team was awful last year until Jerusi got there. Like they were just not fun to watch. There was nothing creative about them. And now this guy's turned them into like world beaters. I mean, Rudy is. I mean, Cecilia Dominguez is gone, and Maxi Rudy. Like you talked about this too. You said that's a really good signing. You really liked that signing when they made that signing. I was much more of like this guy's like the journeyman. I mean, he stepped into this starting role now, and Maxi's just completely taken over. And now, I mean, they've got a front 3, 4 that are just completely like disastrous for any defense that comes across them. I mean, Fagundes, hell, they turned Fagundes into one of the better players in this league, and this guy was rotting away on Bruce Arena's bench. Like this, it just seems like Wolf in forever and sign him up for many years to come. Because, and I still don't think this team is like, it's funny. I don't think they're as talented on paper as a lot of the teams that you're going to see come across, in the playoffs. So, I guess hats off to them. Matthew McConaughey is all right.
I think you'd say more than all right if they won
Right.
the MLS Cup. Funny thing to look at. You know what team finished 3rd place above Atlanta in 2017?
2017?
Yeah.
Orlando? No.
Chicago Fire.
2017? Who did they have?
2017.
Schweinsteiger was gone by then, wasn't he?
No, I think he stayed around for a bit.
I'm interested now. I'm going to look up the Fire's 2017 roster. Ew.
But to go from that to last place now is pretty rough.
They've been a fall from grace, though. Like, they were really good at one point, weren't they?
Well, they went from 3rd place in 2017 in the East to 20th the next year. I mean, that's just kind of how they are. They were 20th the year before that, too. They just kind of bounce around like that. But yeah, they had Schweinsteiger. Yeah.
Nikolic. Nemanja Nikolic had 24 goals.
Yep, there you go.
Holy crap. And David Akam had 14. Man, they had 2 really. Holy cow. Is it Akam or Akam?
David Akam. Yeah, former Union player.
Canadian, yeah.
Dax McCarty was on there still. Yeah, I mean they had Mihalovic. I mean they had a lot of good players back then. Brandon Vincent. But we're not here to talk about 2017. Okay. Back to the West. Austin, we talked about LAFC, who we're still going to be waiting for Gareth Bale, who might play this week. I doubt he will. He's been off. He's going to have to get fitness back up. We have RSL, who I guess I cursed. I don't know. They drew with the Crew and they lose to Minnesota now. The Galaxy get their big win, Logan, and they left no doubt. 4-0. They were able to put it away, celebrate the 4th of July with 4 goals, and end up in 4th place in the West.
It's good for them, though. Like, we talked about it. If Chicharito wasn't scoring, it seems like they were having a hard time. But grab 4 goals. That'll fix some of the issues that you have, at least mentally. I feel like that's pretty good. So that's what now, 2 in the game against Minnesota, 4 in this game against Montreal. I mean, that's 6 goals in the last 2 matches. So that's a step in the right direction. Are they going to add anybody? Like, I feel like they've been awfully quiet.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I just feel like
you would hope so, right? But I don't know if they have those places to
look up their transfer rumors.
But it's good for them. Stop the free fall, right? They had a draw and a loss. Stop that. before that, they had a win against Austin, and they had a loss against Houston before that. So kind of stop that, bounce back up. They're even on points with 5th and 6th, and they're 1 point above 7th of Seattle. So they really had to stop this. They have a game in hand of most teams except for Seattle. So they're doing okay there. But they really need it to stop that free fall to stay in a playoff spot, I feel. And, because you never know. Once you fall out of a playoff spot, do you have the wherewithal to get back in it, the mentality?
Mm-hmm.
We also have Dallas, who at one point were like top of the West. They've fallen all the way down to 5th. They have not won since May 28th against Orlando at home. Orlando's home. So there you go. There's another one. But they lose to Vancouver. They draw with Austin. They lose to LAFC. They draw with Miami. They sit 27th place. At this point, I'm thinking battle for the top spot in the West is LA and Austin. They're 2 points separating.
Mm-hmm.
The gap from 2nd to 3rd is now 5 points. And then from there, it's all bunched up until 10th place with Portland with 23 points pretty much. There's 4 points separating 4th place to 10th in the West. And now the wooden spoon race is on with SKC now having 16 points compared to Chicago and DC, who now have 17. So could be looking at Sporting KC finishing with the wooden spoon.
Oof. And they're in like a world of hurt. Like I feel,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their team was aging. Boy. Now their team's, I mean, it's a mess. Like Johnny Russell, we talked about this though. We said if Johnny Russell and Chaloy cannot produce, like we thought they were going to be a lower playoff team. Maybe if that was the case, if those two can't produce like they did, because we thought if they played anywhere close to the level they did last year, like this was a top playoff team in the West still. That Peter Vermees was a guy that could coach them to one of those top spots. But man, this has been a disastrous year for them. You lose Polito, you lose who's the striker that replaced, I forget who they brought in that they thought was going to be something special.
Gotti Kinda is out, right?
Yeah, Gotti Kinda was out. I think he's been out all year. But it just seems like the injury bug. They lost a bunch of the players. They relied heavily on a lot of veteran presence, and now it just seems like everything's falling apart, and they just don't have a young roster anymore. Like they've got older guys. There's a lot of 32s, 35s, 32, 36. Like it's a lot of older guys clogging up that system. Kyrie Shelton hasn't been very good up front. Did you know that he's played 1,000, almost 1,100 minutes, Jordan? Kyrie Shelton as a forward, and he has not scored yet.
Wow.
Like that's how dire I feel like it's been. Chaloy only 4. Wow.
Yeah. 4 wins this year. Houston, RSL, Rapids, and Nashville. 4
Like they could
draws. Crew, Dallas, NYCFC, San Jose. Every other game a loss.
Like they could be really bad for a lot of years to come. Because like they really do. I mean, if you look at their minutes played, their top minutes played, Tim Millier is 36. That's their goalkeeper. Remy Walter, 27. Then Johnny Russell, who's 32. The next two are relatively younger, but then you drop down and the rest of them are like 30s in the 1,000-minute marks. Roger Espinoza is almost 36. Kyrie Shelton's only almost 30. Graham Zusi, 35.
Crazy. Well, they have Montreal next. We'll see how that goes. Could be very bad for them. We have how many games left? We have less than half, right? For most of these teams.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're all over the mark. I think they're all above 8. They all have 18 or 19, I think, now.
Yeah, so we're at half for some, and we're at more than half for others. And
Mhm.
KC is one of those that is more than half. Brutal. Rapids. I mean, after how well they were last year, they're all the way down in 12th place. They were even getting high up at the beginning of this year, right? But
Mhm.
they've now their last win was May 22nd against Seattle. 3 losses and a draw. There for the Rapids. Dynamo and Timbers kind of just hanging around a bit, right?
Yeah.
Houston's at 21 points. That's 5 points short of Seattle. There's time for them to move some stuff, but they've had two straight losses, a win, then 2 straight losses. So expect a win here and then another 2 straight losses. Is probably what we're looking at there. Timbers are just literally 3 points shy of a playoff spot. But can they get it going? They have 2 games more played than most of these other teams above
Mhm.
them. I don't think it's going to happen for them this year. I'm going to say that 10th place right now, Timbers, is the last place it's possible to get a playoff spot in. I'm not so sure on these Rapids, San Jose, Houston, SKC. I think those teams are just, if you look at their win-loss draws in their last 5, you see a lot of red there. And from Timbers up, you see a lot more green, except for Minnesota. But they've had 2 straight wins, Minnesota.
Yeah, that 7th spot's going to get wild, I think. I mean, Seattle has started to play a lot better, so I think maybe even Seattle knocks down some of these. Like I do think.
Yeah, they have
I
2
do
games in
think,
hand too, so they can jump
yeah,
all the way up to like 5th, 4th.
yeah. Because I do think Dallas. I'm combining a bunch of teams there. Dallas and Nashville. I think if you're looking at it the way they've been playing, I think Seattle's in much better form. And Seattle's got a crap ton of talent. So I think if they start playing well, I mean, like you said, I think they could easily find their way back up, challenging for this, maybe even the 3rd spot with RSL, like not playing as well now. Like I mean, you really could see the Galaxy or the Seattle all the way up to that 3rd spot. I could totally see them catching fire and playing it into a home
No,
field
Fire's
advantage.
in the East.
That's true. Yeah, they've way past the Fire. That was good.
All right, let's jump over. We're kind of running tight on time here. Let's jump over to the game of the week.
It's time for the Match of the Week preview.
Match of the Week preview is where we tell you about the games coming up and we tell you which one to watch. Saturday is a pretty full slate. There's no Sunday games. There's I think 1 Friday game. No, 3 Friday games. Yeah. So we have Philadelphia Union versus DC at 7:30 on ESPN this Friday. We have LAFC versus LA Galaxy and El Trafico on Friday on ESPN. Then we have Vancouver, Minnesota at 10:30 on ESPN Plus. Then on Saturday, we have NYCFC versus New England Revs at 1 o'clock on Unimas, TUDN, and Twitter. Seattle and Portland at 4:30 on Fox. Big Fox. Atlanta and Austin at 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus. Charlotte and Nashville facing off for the first time on FS1. Cincinnati, New York Red Bulls at 7:30. Montreal, KC at 7:30. Toronto, San Jose at 7:30. Chicago and Columbus at 8. Orlando, Miami at 8. Houston versus Dallas at 8:30. And RSL, Colorado at 10 o'clock. So what would you say, Logan? I would say probably match the week for me. Should I take the easy one? Yes, I will. El Trafico, LA Galaxy, LAFC. Must watch. Maybe we'll see Bale. Probably not. Maybe we'll see Chiellini. Probably more likely. And I don't know. I think that is going to be really good. Top of the East versus top of the West. Sorry, versus 4th place in the West. Can LA keep? Well, I just shortened LA for both of them. Can the Galaxy keep their momentum Will LAFC rebound from a loss? It's all there. It is all there. Let me find their head-to-heads real quick because I love that stat. Let me find that real quickly.
A lot of good rivalries this week, like the about an interstate or
It's rivalry
city
week,
rivalries. Yeah. Like I really like that they do this because Portland, like, it's weird. Portland and Seattle are playing, and neither of us are going to pick that game. So that's pretty wild.
Interesting. That was my second option. If
Was it?
Yeah. If I wasn't going to be mean and take this one. Head-to-head, 7 wins for the Galaxy, 5 draws, and 3 wins for the LAFC. They last won. Oh my goodness, when did LAFC win these? 2020, LAFC wins 6-2, and 2019 they win 5-3. Something tells me LAFC can probably win this year. We'll find out. But Logan, your game or match of the week.
Yeah, I'm going a weird one here. I'm going to go with FC Cincinnati versus Red Bull. Red Bulls have won 4 against them. They've drawn once, and Red Bull have only lost twice to Cincinnati. Big thing here to watch, obviously, I think is I didn't know this. Cincinnati is like the 5th worst defense, which makes sense. Like they're just not a good. They weren't a good defense at all last year. Well, I think the worst historically. Cincinnati still continues to struggle defensively. However, that being said, they do score a lot, Cincinnati. So that'll be interesting to watch because they've really got some good guys up front, guys to watch, Lucho Acosta. And then you've also got Brandon Vasquez. Both of them have been a little bit quieter, but Cincinnati has hung in there. They're in the 5th spot. Red Bull sit first in the East. So this could be a really good matchup. I think it's at West End. So Cincinnati, while not great at home, hardly ever win there, I still think it'll be a lot of fun because I think this might be the time, Jordan, where Cincinnati beats a top East team and we look at them and go, okay, like I think you could be a pretty serious contender. Again, they're going to have to shore up the defense. I'm not sure it's all there, so they're really going to have to score some goals here, but they tend to score pretty well, I think, at West End. So it's just a matter of can they stop guys from scoring on their end. So should be a pretty interesting matchup. Interested to see how Red Bull do. Red Bull, I mean, seriously, Jordan, I think the East is up for grabs, and if somebody was willing to grab it, I think right now it could be Red Bulls. So we'll see if they can actually grab that top spot and wrangle it.
Head-to-head, Red Bulls have 4 wins. Cincinnati has 2. Each one has a draw, obviously. And 4 losses for Cincy and 2 losses for the Red Bulls. Cincinnati has scored 5 goals, while Red Bull have scored 7 since their first meeting in 2019.
A big matchup. But Cascadia Cup, too. Like, if you really are interested in watching Seattle and Portland play, I guess fighting for a playoff spot is most accurate for that game.
Well, it is rivalry week, or I think that's what they're aiming for here. So you get some of these, right? Philly and DC is sometimes seen as a rivalry, right? LA versus LA. We get Seattle, Portland. We get
Boston
Charlotte,
and New
Nashville,
York.
which is they're trying to push that as a rivalry.
Yeah.
And we get Orlando, Miami, Houston, Dallas. And then we get the Rocky Mountain Cup, which is RSL, Colorado.
Boston, New York, NYCFC versus the Revs.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a big one, though.
But
at this point, I would start saying NYCFC Red Bulls or NYCFC Union, because the NYCFC Union games are getting real chippy now. So that's what I'm
surprised Crew and Cincy aren't playing this week instead. And then Red Bull and, like you said,
I don't know, because they do another rivalry week later on, I think. Yeah. So they'll put those into that's when they'll do it. I almost pressed the wrong song because I think they changed where it's located on here.
Those jerks.
But that'll wrap us up here. So we got tons of games coming at you this weekend. It'll be nice next year when they're all on the same days, Wednesdays and Saturdays. Really be able to keep track of that a lot better. If you want to give us a follow on Twitter at Stateside Show, Instagram at Stateside Show, Facebook.com/Stateside Show, or email us statesideshow@gmail.com. You can rate and review us on iTunes and now also on Spotify. Hope everyone has a great rest of their week, and we'll catch you next time breaking down some of these rivalry matches.
Wolfen.